what a hell of a series, man.
Heartbreaking for Zeta Division, and I mean, my heart goes out to the Japanese fans. I know a
Yeah.
lot of them still, they love to see the international teams. It will still be a fun event, but to be this close to seeing your heroes play an international tournament in front of the home crowd and for them to miss out, absolutely heartbreaking moment. Zeta Division, they played their hearts out, and we thought that fairy tale run could be repeated here in the playoffs of VCT Pacific, but it was not meant to be. T1, just the stronger team to the very end today in this best of three.
Yeah, I mean, this was a real privilege to cast, honestly. I don't know what else to say, man. Like, I think that, you know, we really have seen both these teams grow so much. You know, I'm sad Zeta's not going to be going further on down the road, but, you know, Valorant, let's never forget, it is a young esport compared to so many other titles, and it will be an esport that will age like a fine wine, as I think Zeta will age like a fine wine. They just need more time to grow.
Yeah, I mean, Zeta Division, I mean, what else is there to say? They played their best. They played quite well, but T1 was just cleaner a bit earlier and for a bit longer during the match.
Yeah, with those incredible seizures of the spike site, whether it was A, whether it was B, Zeta comes back in, tries to get the retake. Sometimes they do it, but honestly, not enough. And so T1 survives, at least for one more day. Well, look, you know, for Zeta, obviously this is far from the end of their story. They did improve in the ways that we said they needed to improve. They also occasionally fell back into the problems we were worried about them having before. You know, Zeta and the Japanese teams in general tend to be hyper-conservative. They tend to really want to eke out as much intel as possible before they commit to any kind of peak, to any kind of spike site. Now, there were a couple rounds in this best of three. They did look a little bit like that. But there were also more rounds in this best of three where I think they showed a more refined Zeta. A Zeta that was able to probe correctly, to get intel, to not waffle over A or B.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't see much of that back and forth and flip-flopping going on. Sure, the timer sometimes still ran very close to the end, but the improvements were there. But alas, it was just a step too late for Zeta Division, so we will have to say our heartfelt goodbyes to Zeta Division. Meanwhile,
and it's T1 who stands a chance to make it to Masters Tokyo and Champions LA. And of course, you know, it's a sad day for Zeta Division. All the fans of Zeta Division saw a lot of tears being shed in the audience because we all want to see a Japanese team play on their home turf over in Tokyo. But sadly, you know, they fought so darn hard on all of these maps. It was so close. And unfortunately, T1, you know, carried through to the finish line here.
Yeah, it's a tremendous performance from both teams. I mean, all the teams that played today really put everything out there. I mean, you could see how much it means to them, you know, to get through to Masters and then the Champions. And, you know, it just wasn't meant to be for Zeta today, unfortunately. It was a very back-and-forth day, a lot of streaky rounds. It was kind of interesting in that respect that both teams were able to kind of put together some big streaks here and there and kind of kept the other teams off balance.
I mean, I think today was a test, and for the two teams, you know, it's the human spirit can be indomitable, but at the same time, it just shows that T1 is a team that has that much potential. They have so much prospect that when it comes down to it, even though they've played so long, it's a really long day, they managed to keep themselves together, like to keep their spirits up together as a team. And that's what T1 stands for today. They showed that they could think outside the box. Thinking outside the box is something that Zeta does best. And they did so much of it on their attacking half. Zeta didn't really adapt to that as well. I think Laz was having a tough time. And you could see it in bits of their gameplay. Like certain shots were being whiffed, or maybe Depp going off on his own sometimes. And it wasn't as cohesive as you would have liked it to be, and some certain timeouts also being called, but towards the end of it, T1 really was this team to kind of pull off maneuvers that Zeta Division did not expect, and by the end of it, you know, we see this result, and hats off to T1. They did a great job, but we would just say like one final nice for Zeta Division.
No, I mean, it was it was hard because there was like times when I thought that T1 was like making a lot of unforced errors. Like it seemed like their mental game, maybe they were getting tired, maybe they were the ones crumbling. But then at the end, when it kind of mattered most in that longer stretch, you know, Crow peeking on a Carpe in that 2v1 that gave him the opportunity to take 10 down where he does not need to peek on that at all. Saw this yesterday with Paper X in a much less important round. But things like that, like these little things, these protocols, and I mean, I'm sorry, but that timeout, that second timeout, assuming that was actually a Zeta timeout and that wasn't like the wrong graphic that came up, that was back-to-back timeouts there, unnecessary. That, like, stopped the momentum of Zeta. I understand he might have saw something and he wanted to try to fix it, but I don't think that that's the right time for it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Not to be too harsh on anyone, of course, but if you saved up that timeout, from the moment round 20 onwards started going through, like T1 was starting to go on a streak. If there was a secondary timeout being called by Zeta Division, you never know. There could have been a different result, but whatever happened, happened. I think Zeta Division was still really tenacious, and they fought really hard, even down to that little clutch where I think 10 was trying to stick on a spike, but it didn't go through. They tried, you know, and this is what happens, but there's still LCQ. They might not be able to go through Masters Tokyo, and that kind of sucks, honestly. But it's not over.
It's not over, honestly.
Not.
But, you know, I'm not even doing this as a pity party. Zeta Division, when
They
we
fought.
saw some of them, they were fighting the entire time, and I saw some of the players just now before we came here to this desk, and they didn't look sad. They look angry and frustrated. They want to keep going. So I expect to see Zeta come back looking amazing in LCQ.
100%.
But now let's break down the match, because this was a hugely long match to break down. Now let's talk about round 8. Quack, you know, you were noticing 10's kills were pretty insane.
Superb. I mean, I
Yeah.
think this was one of the rounds where it started that Zeta streak towards the end of the first half. Notice the Nightfall being sent out by Laz from under tunnel, and at the same time, just robbing sound from T1. Allows for 10 to sneak into this corner that wasn't really checked, allowing 10 to get a couple more frags, and by the end of it, Zeta was so much in control of the round that T1 had to back off. Off of this one little win, Zeta Division continued on for 4 more wins, and by the end of the first half, it was a fairly even score, something that, you know, could have helped Zeta Division. But at the same time, I mean, after that, like, you can see what happens with T1. They're doing really well.
And you know what? Zeta, though, was prepped, and this is why there was so much back and forth, these streaks that you were talking about, Paper Thin. Even on T1's Thrifty, they were expecting their aggression and just handled it well.
Yeah, I really wanted to highlight a round that I thought Zeta managed some chaos here very, very nicely, and Ban right away gets up into the air and does a really good job of getting at least some damage, but that pushes Zeta in here. Munchkin at least gets one and trade out, but 10 is recognizing this pressure instantly. It's a good reaction here to pop this Nanoswarm, and then they have to use the Orbital Strike as well to buy some time to make sure they can get this plant down. So a really good exchange here for the side of Zeta. Yeah, you got to use an ultimate, but there's only a couple rounds left in the half anyway. 10 then going to use his lockdown to make sure that if anybody's coming from Dish, if there's somebody unaccounted for, that's checked for as well. Keep delay, and then Sugar Zero makes a brilliant micro play here to sneak underneath Carpe's nose. Carpe, as great as he was on this map, not even in his, like, mind that could possibly happen. So, like, again, it's like Zeta here, just a lot of protocols that were really strong for them in a kind of difficult situation potentially. That could have gone sideways really fast if they didn't handle that well.
Yeah.